Today we're going to be learning about Avenue 3, which is an area in downtown Miami that has a lot of restaurants, a lot of condos and whatnot, and Steve will elaborate on that. But I did have an opportunity to sit down and have some coffee with Steve, and the story is remarkable, and the work that he's doing and his passion is outstanding. And so I'm so happy to have the opportunity to share with you guys today, Steve and Avenue 3. So Steve, take it away. Woo!
Okay, thank you so much. We are all on a journey in life, and sometimes things take an unexpected turn, and that happened to me in 2016. I decided to make Miami my hometown, and I've set about to better understand this place and its history. Believing in making a difference anywhere I've lived, that's why I'm here. And thank you for listening to this presentation on Avenue 3 Short Street. And thank you, Elizabeth and Adriana and everybody for letting me join today's meeting and for the kind introduction that we didn't read, but that's okay. What you were gonna say was, please welcome Steve Dutton, the founder of a community-led project named Avenue 3 Miami. Steve retired and moved to Miami in 2013 after holding leadership positions at a major airline, launching a startup business in the computer industry, and eventually was CEO of a nonprofit serving the homeless in Fort Worth, Texas. And I'm using the experience I gained, actually, having taken a leadership program like this about 20 years ago when I was living in Fort Worth, Texas. And guess what? I've fallen from Miami, known by many as the Magic City. I started Avenue 3 Miami in 2018 and convinced the Miami Foundation to take us on as our fiscal sponsor. This allows us to operate as nonprofit, and there are no staff. We are volunteers who wish to accomplish change on behalf of our community. And we're initially focused on downtown. There are 3 areas of focus, and they are streetscape transformation, community outreach, and the purpose is to build a vital neighborhood. The first is transformation of the street, Northeast 3rd Avenue. How many of you recognize this view? The photo is taken from Northeast 1st Street, looking south towards Flagler Street. The street today is closed to all but local traffic due to the reconstruction ongoing on Flagler Street. But it's not the first time it's been closed by us. And our goal is to transform the street permanently as a shared street with greater emphasis on pedestrians. One reason is to recognize the historic significance of the street. After I met Dr. Paul George and historian Casey Paquette, I fell in love with its history as Short Street from the beginning of our city in 1896. You might already know some of what I'm about to share. I'm sure Liana will, but maybe not. When the city was first incorporated on July 28, 1896, this street was just a block from the Biscayne Bay shoreline. And it was an upscale residential street with homes of the most affluent of the very early pioneers settling here. Names like Colonel William Burdine, who later developed the Florida store, Burdine's, and Edwin Waddell, the city's first real estate agent, or James Leeming, who built the Leamington Hotel, which, oh my gosh, still stands 100 years later on Short Street. It was the preferred pathway for horse-drawn carriages from the original train station built by Henry Flagler near today's Freedom Tower, south to his famous Royal Palm Hotel, which he built along the Miami River on land donated by his dear friend, Julia Tuttle, another early change maker. Over time, more buildings came to the street, including the Elks Lodge, the YMCA, and many new hotels which faced east along the Bay shoreline. One of my favorites is this, the Elks Lodge with its Moorish architecture that was located at today's corner of Flagler and Northeast 3rd Avenue, behind the McAllister Hotel, which once stood. It's all been replaced by 50 Biscayne condominiums today. This building even survived the Great Miami Hurricane of 1926 because it was built with reinforced concrete. In the basement was the Golden Dragon, a popular bar frequented on Short Street during the 20s. Despite even the days of Prohibition, Miami was right out there. I learned the story of Jane Wood Reno, the mother of Janet Reno. Jane was a strong-willed frontier woman and a heavy drinker. At the saloon, she was telling those present about her wrestling with an alligator in the Everglades, and a nearby man overheard her and claimed, "You're a liar." Jane calmly arose from her seat, grabbed a pitcher of beer, poured it over his head. He sat there so stunned, and it's a good thing, for she was trained in martial arts. He didn't know, so there's no telling what might have happened had he confronted her further. More change came to Short Street as years went on. And notice the building at the back of this photo with the name Everglades Hotel at the top left. Believe it or not, this is where Biscayne Condominiums, where I live, is today. This is looking north on Short Street. Here's a comparison photo of how things have changed. Now, the photo on the left, I didn't mention. If you notice on the left side, about halfway back, there's a red brick building. Above it was signage that said Union Bus Station. It was the Greyhound bus station back in the mid-century. And because of Hurricane Irma in 2017, the roof was taken off. And so consequently, on the photo on the right, you'll notice on the left-hand side, there's really an empty space there. It's an empty space right across from Ceviche 105 restaurant, very famous. And it's surrounded by an ugly green, cloth fence or whatever. Well, we're going to hopefully change what that looks like. Notice all the cars in both photographs and what I said earlier about wanting to make this street predominantly a pedestrian street. It'll be shared, and we'll get into that in more detail. Here's an historic photo of our Miami skyline. Notice, now we framed Avenue 3 or Short Street by 2nd Street and Flagler. Right at the bottom of those arrows is where the street is. It's behind some buildings. It's just one block west of the shoreline at that time. Notice two things: the lovely Royal Palm Park at the south of Short Street that provided the city dwellers at the time of a wonderful outdoor space for gatherings and athletics. It was also where the carriages would jog to the right, just behind those trees, continuing south to the left to the Royal Palm Hotel. The street still does that today. Northeast 3rd Avenue at Flagler then becomes Southeast Flagler, Southeast 3rd Avenue, I'm sorry, continuing down to the river. It wasn't until, this is the other thing, notice the shoreline just a block from Short Street or at the bottom of the photo. It wasn't until the mid-20s when the city finally succeeded in purchasing the strip of land along the shoreline and the Elser Pier, which you'll see at the foot of Flagler Street. This enabled construction of Bayfront Park out of soil pumped from the bottom of Biscayne Bay. What a view it has provided our city. And here's the view looking ahead 5 years. This is actually a photo rendering. After construction begins next spring of the 100-story Waldorf Astoria Hotel and Residences. This photo of downtown Miami includes the 250,000 residents who live in the urban core of our city, plus the other 500,000 who either commute to work or visit each day. Our goal is to attract them to visit Avenue 3 Short Street and enjoy eating at one of the nearly 20 restaurants that line the street or are just inside its buildings. One of my neighbors says, exploring Avenue 3 is an international travel experience. I can dine one day in Italy, the next in Asia, Latin and South America, even Serbia. And I have a good friend. She says, an authentic global traveler, explorer will head straight to Avenue 3 to feel the pulse of urban Miami. We started to activate our vision in October 2018 with a 4-day volunteer event, painting the parking lanes, laying end-to-end 15 tables with the help of decorations by a nearby florist. And we built a model Avenue 3 parklet in front of one of the restaurants in the parking lane for outdoor seating. That Saturday evening, we hosted Taste of Avenue 3, offering a small sampling of food donated from all the restaurants, and over 700 folks from the neighborhood and elsewhere made it a fun evening, and one that everyone said, this is what we want in downtown, hooray! Well, unfortunately, there were real world challenges that began to frustrate all of our efforts. The event permit was from the city, but the county insisted the city paint over the colors, which they did with black tar. We aimed to repaint the parking lanes, maybe with different colors that the county will approve. And since the Flagler end of the street is closed for the next year, this is our time to finish the job of creating Avenue 3 Short Street, always with the help of volunteers. In 2019, we applied for and received an award of funds from the Public Space Challenge to improve the overhead lighting on Short Street. So notice the lights in the photo at the bottom. They'll be affixed high up on the buildings. This will accomplish what we had always wanted, kind of an overhead lighting situation, which would brighten the street and show off the colors in the parking lanes and the sidewalks and answer a long time concern. By affixing it to the building, the same thing will be accomplished at a far lower cost. And you can imagine the maintenance, how windy it becomes downtown with trying to manage overhead hanging lights. It's not going to work. We're looking for leaders to help make the vision a reality for downtown. Remembering those early change makers, Julia Tuttle and Henry Flagler, look at what has become of Miami today. Now watch this short video. Yes, there are plenty of reasons to rejoice the good fortune of our city, but there are also challenges we haven't yet overcome. And community outreach is the next one I hope you'll agree can be improved in our city. While it's true, other cities in America fare even worse in combating homelessness, our terrific location and good weather will assure a worsening of our situation unless more is done. Compared to other cities with tens of thousands of unsheltered homeless living on the streets, we currently only have 1,000 unsheltered homeless persons in our city, and most of them are in downtown. With the technology now available for us to use, I am convinced we must change how we view our situation. It starts by remembering they aren't a different people. They are us. Except their lives have included circumstances leading them to be homeless and living on the streets. This has prompted us to advocate for a pilot project named appropriately 1,000 Miami Stories. It started when I met Merlin, who was sleeping outside the AT&T store on Southeast First, next to Southeast 3rd Avenue, next to the Starbucks. And every morning he awakened and I would smile at him as I greeted him. Hello. He never asked me for anything. And so one day I struck up a conversation. I learned he had moved to Miami with his mom, who recently passed, but he had skills on an iPad creating anime drawings. He was artistic. I helped him get his driver's license reinstated, and I'm happy today he's employed and living in an apartment again. Or Victoria, who I spotted most mornings outside my home at Biscayne. I learned she came to Miami from Havana in 1963, and because of a failed marriage and the tragic death of her young daughter from a gun shooting years before, she ended up on the streets. I connected her to Lotus House, a shelter for women, and I hope the success I saw happen last year is continuing. Or Sean. Here, let me play this short video of our conversation.
Hey, Sean.
Hey.
What was the most emotional moment you remember when you became homeless?
The most emotional was when I couldn't go home for Thanksgiving for whatever reason, and like that took a toll on me because like, it's like, wow, that's like the one day I wish I could go home. But yeah, and I couldn't. It was pretty bad.
Okay. What is your story? Why did you become homeless?
Also, it came down to bad decisions. I lost my job recently. I was at Whole Foods, but I'm not there no more, unfortunately. I was in school. I lost my financial aid. That's what also led to my recent homelessness because I use it for housing. And like I said, just bad choices or bad decisions.
What did you do at Whole Foods?
I was the barista there.
Did you enjoy that?
Yes, I loved it.
You loved it?
Yeah.
You get to meet all kinds of folks.
Yeah, and I just love making coffee too.
Well, people who see this video, what do you want them to know? What would you want them to do?
Mostly not judge everyone, like not put them all under one category. To care for us, because we're all human too. And hopefully we can provide more resources to help the homeless people, like a day shelter or anything that could just help us to get, move forward.
Thank you, Sean.
I'm happy to say that Sean's a work in progress. I've been friends now for about 3 or 4 months. And recently we were interviewed on Channel 10, he and I. And I was so proud watching that interview with him dressed in a white shirt, cleaned up. And he's really proud of his ability as a photographer. So he's been helping me film video of other persons who are in a similar situation for the new pilot program, 1000 Miami Stories. He's a bright young guy. But what are all the issues that really the community is confronting regarding homelessness? We've all felt the unsafe feeling walking on downtown streets, especially after dark. And we've seen how dirty the sidewalks become from persons sleeping in the doorways of stores and alongside the buildings in downtown. How garbage gathers after well-intentioned feedings by churches and other groups that aren't being cleaned up afterwards. Instead, it requires the city police department or firemen to come conduct cleanup sweeps at great expense to the taxpayers. Health and sanitation are more at risk for everyone, but the real impact is the economic one on businesses that suffer the consequence of there not being enough being done to reduce the number of unserved, unsheltered persons on our streets. And in our opinion, we can do better. A vital neighborhood begins when we realize everyone must become involved, and there are many untapped resources we've identified that aren't being used. I recently attended a week's evening training class at the Miami Police Department's Citizen Police Academy in downtown, and I recommend you check it out. The poster shows the class started again this week, but again next month and the following month, the dates and how to apply. Today's abundance of new apps includes specific ones I know which would help our situation. They're already in use in other cities with worse numbers than Miami has. Imagine, if we were on the West Coast in San Francisco, they have such a huge problem with almost 50,000 unsheltered, unserved persons on the street. Seattle with 20,000, LA, New York, Chicago. Our numbers are only 1,000. Imagine what we are on the verge of accomplishing if we merely focus on having the means to communicate more effectively between all stakeholders. I'm excited about working with Thriving Minds, which is a new entity that has promised to work with Judge Stephen Leifman, who's he's the county judge in charge of our mental health division. He's been hard at work for years to retrofit and reopen an old hospital in the Alapata area. I've toured it several times. I'm going to take another tour soon, I hope. It's going to be ready to open next spring. It'll be amazing because it'll be one place that persons with suffering from mental illness will be able to go to receive the help they need immediately, to even lead to housing opportunities for them. So it's pretty exciting. But imagine, look at this chart and look around the circle at all the stakeholders. Today, they don't have a means of communicating real time. They don't have a means of being able to build the information database we need to reduce the number of persons that are being unserved on the street. Outreach Grid is such an app. It's being used. I learned about it in Fort Worth, Texas, of all places, where I'd moved from. I'm so proud to report that Fort Worth, which is a larger city than Miami, believe it or not, almost 1 million people now, their numbers have dwindled to like on one hand. They have pretty much eliminated unserved homeless. There are no homeless downtown if you go to Fort Worth, Texas. And one reason simply is by using a product like Outreach Grid, they've been able to centralize all the information in such a way that everyone benefits and everyone's ideas come to the forefront. We need that here. Reducing from 1,000 the number of unserved, unsheltered homeless in downtown Miami. What does that also accomplish? We can build Avenue 3 Short Street into a new destination in downtown. Other cities have succeeded in doing this on their urban streets, and we believe Miami can do this also. Look at the photo on the left. Just a little side comment. See all those flowers? Did you know that 90% of the flowers that are brought into the United States from places like Ecuador and Latin America, they come in through Miami. There's an entire industry of small companies and farms that support that industry, and we don't celebrate it in Miami. I would love for Short Street not only to celebrate its history, but maybe become Flower Street by introducing flower bombs and other things to really welcome people to the street. We've got 20 restaurants. Oh my God, what a destination. Look at the photo in the center. How much fun it would be to have regular events scheduled downtown on Avenue 3, Short Street. Where do you come in? Well, what thoughts or ideas do you have? What questions do you have? We should have time in just a few minutes to explore them, but oh my gosh, think about what we could accomplish if all of us just put our minds towards this. And so I hope you'll think about it. I mean, whether you can paint or you create or you design or you love to organize or just be an advocate, fill in the blank. I mean, we need your leadership skills, period. And we believe in giving back. One thought we have is to create a certificate or other means of recognizing your leadership that helps accomplish our shared vision, something that will translate to your resume. As I've said, we need leaders. We need change makers, just as this city has always benefited from. And this is our email address, avenue3miami@gmail.com.